TomoNews presents Animal Rescues.
Donkey photographed grinning after being saved from flood. A nasty flood in Killarglen, Ireland almost drowned this poor donkey. But luckily, Mike Fleming answered the call for help. When the donkey became stranded in rising floodwaters, the donkey's owner sounded the alarm for someone to help. Animal Heaven Animal Rescue then began reaching out to anyone with a boat and a brave heart. The Animal Rescue got rowing club member Mike Fleming on the phone, and without hesitation, he volunteered his rowboat and a team set sail. When they found the lone donkey, wet and probably freezing, the team got out some rope and a lifesaver. Then they laid the flotation device around the donkey's neck and gently pulled it to safety. Once they made it to shore, the rescuers say the donkey expressed a huge relief. Predictably, he couldn't be happier to be alive. And if you look closely, is that a smile? Think it is! Safe and sound, the donkey has since warmed up and been given a name. The lucky guy will forever be known as Mike, after the hero who had the guts and compassion to help save a donkey in need. Police officer takes donkey for a ride in the back of a cruiser. The back of a police cruiser is usually reserved for the bad guys, but for Oklahoma officer Kyle Canaan, it was reserved for a special guest. After receiving a call from a concerned citizen in a 50-mile-per-hour zone in Norman, Oklahoma, Officer Canaan arrived on the scene and found the poor little guy, Squishy, wandering in the middle of the street. He quickly guided Squishy to the back of the cruiser. The back window was even rolled down so Squishy could enjoy the ride. With the help of the Good Samaritan, Robin, they safely relocated Squishy. If Squishy's owner doesn't turn up to take him back, Squishy will get to enjoy a new loving home with Robin. If that's the case, we can already foresee the happily ever after.
Loyal dog watches over trapped friend for a week. If unconvinced about the loyalty and intelligence of dogs, this story will set you right once and for all. An 11-year-old settler mix named Tillie endured a week in the outdoors to stay with her companion, 4-year-old Basset Hound Phoebe, who'd managed to get herself trapped in a cistern in a ravine in Vashon, Washington, until someone found them. Phoebe and Tillie ran out of their home on September 7 while their owner was hosting a party. Their worried owner went out looking for them but couldn't find them, and so contacted Amy Carey of the non-profit Vashon Island Pet Protectors. The dogs were last seen on September 8 when Tillie was stuck in a pond with Phoebe waiting at the water's edge. Both ran off when Tillie made it back to the water. On September 14, a farmer phoned Carey noticing a reddish dog coming up to his property to get his attention before heading back into a ravine. Carey set out into the ravine and called Tillie's name, which was returned with a single woof response. When Carey finally saw Tillie, she had her head on a concrete wall of an old cistern where Phoebe was trapped. The dehydrated and exhausted dogs were reunited with their owner, who treated them to a celebratory dinner of burgers. We're just glad they're both okay. Good job, Tillie.
Hero Colombian cop saved dog from certain muddy death. Earlier this week, a dangerous landslide killed more than 60 people in Salgar, Colombia. During a search for survivors, police spotted a dog drifting rapidly down a raging river. Wasting no time, the officers tried to rescue the dog, risking their own lives while jumping into the muddy river. Until one brave officer jumps in and manages to grab the dog and save his life. But it's not over yet, as the dog was in bad shape, so one cop had to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. The exhausted dog was carried to a police car where he was given fluids, after which he was taken to a close-by city for further care. Police said if they can't find his owner, that the dog, nicknamed Prince, will be welcomed into their police family.
Good Samaritan saves cat stuck on busy highway. This man, Richard Christensen, is a hero, although he claims he's nothing of the kind. But to little Freeway the cat, he certainly is. On April 9, Christensen posted this to Facebook. Watch his heroism as he risks all to save the life of this little fella.
cat. I don't know if somebody let him out or if he was walking, but it looked like he got scared and he's trying to make it through this fence. He's been chewing on the fence. He's scared as hell. I know you're dehydrated. I know, baby. I'm gonna help you, okay? Oh my God. I know, baby. I know. I know, baby. I know you're scared, dehydrated. I know. Can I help you? Can I help? I know. Can I help you? I know, baby. I'm gonna go ahead and take you to the Humane Society and have you checked out, okay? Get you back to dehydration in a nice, quiet little spot.
Freeway is now recovering in a foster home thanks to Good Samaritan Richard Christensen.
Cat lover dismantles Mercedes to save kitten. Cat lovers rejoice, there's hope for humanity yet. On Mother's Day, this young man, let's call him Joe, age 27, decided to go out cruising in his Mercedes-Benz. Joe said he stopped his car when he saw two teenagers looking up into a tree along the side of a bridge. He stopped to offer assistance. The two teenagers told him there was a kitten stuck up in the tree. Joe then climbed up into the tree to rescue the kitten, but the cat darted away from him and fell out of the tree into the river beneath. Joe climbed down from the tree and then jumped into the slow-moving river to save the kitten from drowning. Unfortunately, the panicked and now completely soaked kitten ran from its rescuers, climbing up inside the engine of Joe's Mercedes to hide. No matter what the three did, they couldn't convince the kitten to come out. So Joe had his beloved motor towed to the nearest dealership so that the professionals could dismantle the engine and retrieve the poor kitty. The kitten was then dried off and fed before Joe took it to a veterinarian. The vet gave the kitten a clean bill of health and said it was probably only 6 months old. When asked about all the time and effort Joe put into rescuing one kitten, he just shrugged and said that the real effort would be convincing his girlfriend to let him keep it. Maybe he can tell her it just followed him home?
Blind dog rescued after being trapped down a well for over a month. Meet Farudin Bravo. This holiday season, he's traveling down a dark well in Bosnia to save a dog. 26 feet underground and surviving on food thrown down to him by children in the area, the dog desperately needed a hero. When Bravo caught wind of the pooch's plight, he laced up his cape and went in, while his sidekick, Rotko Koblar, along with 3 others, held the rope. When they finally reached the dog, Bravo carefully strapped him into a harness, and the rescuers gently pulled him to safety. As it turns out, the dog was blind and likely fell down the well. Back above ground and finally free, the vets say the dog is actually in fairly good health. And it's all thanks to his kind-hearted heroes who refused to let a blind dog live in darkness. They say miracles do happen this time of year, so it's no wonder they named the dog Christmas. Dog caught in bear trap for 2 weeks stays alive by licking snow. This dog, Forrest, found himself in the fight of his life in March of 2016. Wandering a wooded area in Poland, probably on an adventure of sorts, Forrest suddenly noticed he was stuck. 2 of his legs had gotten caught on a wire bear trap. This type of trap acts like a noose, tightening as the animal caught in it struggles to break free. Poor Forrest learned this the painful way. Over the next 2 weeks, he'd lost the energy to even howl for help. His 2 left legs now infected, all he could do to survive was lick the snow around him to keep hydrated. No one knows who did this to Forrest, but given the trap was set to catch a bear, there's a good chance the hunter it belonged to had checked on it over the 2 weeks. Left for dead, fate finally smiled on Forrest, as he was rescued by an animal welfare group in Przemysl, Poland. His 2 infected legs had to be amputated as a result of the wire trap, and even after being rescued and fending off a fever, he almost died from parasitic worms draining him from the inside. But his new caregivers report he's probably out of the woods now, and if they can raise enough funds to have him fitted for prosthetic legs, he'll be back out on his adventures again soon. Only from now on, they'll be supervised.
Heroic RSPCA dudes risk life and limb to save 2 lamb racks. The first question you'll ask yourself when watching this video is, how the hell did that stupid sheep get stuck on that tiny ledge in the first place? Was it sheer rambunctiousness, or was he 3 sheeps to the wind? Frankly, we'll never know. But the brave boyos of the Welsh branch of the RSPCA still had to abseil down the sheer rock face of Trefound Mountain, Snowdonia, in freezing conditions to rescue the beast who'd been stuck there for several days. And this being Wales, it appears this is not an isolated incident, as there are 2 more videos of similar rescues on the Society's YouTube page. The heroic act took place earlier this month, and you'll be pleased to know that rather than feeling sheepish, the hungry creature began to feed almost immediately after being lowered down the cliff. All's wool that ends wool, it seems.
SPCA rescues injured dog with rubber band collar. SPCA workers rescued a dog that locals had noticed and described as the balloon-faced dog. Rescuers found that the dog had a rubber band wrapped around its neck, which had partially cut off its blood flow and resulted in the dog's head becoming extremely swollen. The rubber band had also severed the dog's vocal cords, and it was unable to bark. Veterinarians removed the rubber band, which may have been put on the dog maliciously or perhaps gotten stuck on its head when it was younger and smaller. Rescuers estimate the dog to be around 3 months old, and it appears that the rubber band had been trapped around its neck for a month or more. The dog, which has been nicknamed Lucky, is now in recovery and awaiting adoption.
JEDI, the diabetic alert dog, saves life of sleeping 7-year-old boy. Tori Nuttall, her 7-year-old diabetic son Luke, and the rest of the family were sound asleep one night last week when their black Labrador JEDI saved the day. None of the devices monitoring Luke's condition sounded an alarm, but JEDI sensed something was wrong and jumped off the bed, then back on again. Nuttall didn't get up, so JEDI laid on top of her until she woke. JEDI then jumped off the bed and put his front paws on the mattress, but wouldn't get back into bed when Nuttall told him to. JEDI bowed to signal a low alert, prompting Nuttall to check Luke's monitoring machine, which indicated that her son was in stable condition. However, JEDI bowed again and refused to get back in bed. Convinced something was wrong, Nuttall tested Luke's blood and discovered his glucose level was dangerously low. She then gave her son a glucose tab to bring his blood sugar up to a safe level. JEDI is a diabetic alert dog. Similar to a bomb-sniffing dog, he can detect when Luke's blood sugar is too low or too high simply by the power of smell. Luckily, the force is strong in this one.
Dog who lost both eyes finds an owner. Meet Ashton, a 2-year-old pup who's proven to have one hell of a fighting spirit. Weeks ago in Phoenix, Ashton was found collapsed on the side of the road. Staff at the Arizona Humane Society said when they were called to rescue him, the dog was severely exhausted and his eyes were hanging out of their sockets. Emergency surgery was performed and luckily Ashton's life was saved, even though his sight was lost. It's not easy to navigate the world without eyes, but Ashton had the good fortune of having the Humane Society's behavior team helping him learn how to get around using his other senses. Though the Humane Society staff said he was back to wagging his tail and enjoying a good pet, it would be natural to worry this dog's life was not going to get any easier. But after being on the adoption list for only 2 days, Ashton has now found a family to love and care for him. In a fitting end to this tale of resilience, along with their new pal, these folks are also proving that what's even more important than being able to see with our eyes is being able to see with our hearts. Dog discarded at meat market gets second chance and prosthetic legs. At first glance, this 2-year-old golden retriever mix, Chi-Chi, looks as happy a dog as you might ever see. But her good nature and lovable smile don't reveal a hint of the horrors she's endured over her short life. Young Chi-Chi was the victim of unimaginable cruelty from the time she was born, slated to become one of the reported 2.5 million dogs slaughtered annually in South Korea's underground dog meat trade, where there are no laws or regulations requiring the humane slaughter of dogs for meat. Every day, she was hung upside down, her legs bound by ropes and wires, and beaten by handlers, under the belief that a dog's meat is more tender when tortured. At some point, Chi-Chi's keepers realized that the bindings around her legs had cut through her flesh, causing parts of her body to become grossly infected. They came to the conclusion that her meat would likely be too rancid for human consumption, and disposed of her in a dumpster behind the meat market shortly afterward. Still alive. Scared and alone, Chi-Chi was later found by a group of Good Samaritans who immediately contacted an animal rescue organization willing to help the dog in noticeable distress. The rescue team then gathered her up and rushed her to an emergency veterinary clinic. There, doctors diagnosed that her 4 legs had indeed rotted to the bone, the infection spreading to the rest of her body. If she was to have any chance at survival, Chi-Chi would have to undergo a quadruple amputation procedure, effectively cutting off the infection, but consequently leaving her with mere stubs for paws. Though the surgery was successful, it was anyone's guess as to how Chi-Chi might adapt, both physically and emotionally, after all the trauma she'd been through. But this resilient pup, whose name translated means loving, proved to be a fighter like the world has maybe never seen. ARM, the Los Angeles-based animal welfare group who saved Chi-Chi, reports that the day after her surgery, she was wagging her tail and already attempting to walk. A couple days later, remarkably, she was somehow managing to get around on her stumps. Demonstrating she could be a good candidate for prosthetics, Chi-Chi was fitted with 4 new legs and spent the following 2 months getting used to her new footing. It may not have been easy, but she sure made it look that way, running around on her prosthetic paws, chasing balls with reckless abandon like any normal dog would. Through social media and news coverage, her inspiring story caught the attention of the world, in particular a family in Arizona. The Howells, who have 3 dogs already, reached out to ARM to complete Chi-Chi's journey and offer her a loving home. When she was deemed ready, Chi-Chi was flown 6,000 miles from Seoul all the way to LA, where her rescuers and her new family picked her up and brought her to her new home in Phoenix this past week. The Howells say she still has a long road of rehab and recovery ahead of her, and it may not always be a walk in the park. But despite her physical limitations and psychological trauma, they say Chi-Chi appears boundless in her enthusiasm for life. It's hoped her story of being able to forgive and continue to smile in the face of adversity will act as a lesson to people everywhere about how to journey onwards and keep moving forward, one step at a time. Chihuahua runs around on Bay Bridge. Coppers catch him. This little Chihuahua created quite the commotion over the weekend, grabbing headlines for a wild dash down the Bay Bridge. It's not known where the Chihuahua came from or who his owners are, but something about that bridge must have called his name, because on April 3rd, he was spotted dashing across the bridge with no regard for human life. His daring escapade wouldn't last long though, as California Highway Patrol officers began tailing him. With the cops in hot pursuit, the pooch clearly wasn't about to let them take him in without putting up a fight. Running at full tilt, he evaded police as long as he could. At one point during the chase, the wily Chihuahua decided to stop for a moment and face down the 5-0. But rather than give himself up, he chose to toy with the cops and took off again. But the fun couldn't last forever, and eventually the officers were able to safely nab the little guy and get him to safety. CHP San Francisco has since posted photos and video of the pooch, attempting to reunite him with his owners. Until his guardians come and claim him, they've nicknamed him Ponch, after Eric Estrada's dreamy Frank Poncherello character on the hit show Chips. How fitting.
Great Dane barks up the wrong tree. Cora is an 120-pound or 54-kilo Great Dane who lives in Nebraska. Cora also apparently suffers from some sort of species dysphoria, and this cute, not-so-little fella went full feline on Saturday. Imagine the call. Fire department, my Great Dane is stuck in a tree. No, this isn't a joke. Seriously, she's stuck. Yes, I said Great Dane. Yes, she is a dog. Skeptical firefighters arrived and found it was 100% true. Cora had evidently chased a squirrel or something, jumped over a 5-foot fence, and got herself stuck on a tree branch some 20 feet off the ground. A Facebook post from the Plattsmouth Volunteer Fire Department says the initial plan was to get a leash on the cold, scared doggie and get owner Wes McGurrick to try to guide her down. Didn't work. On to plan B. Lower the dog out of the tree with some kind of harness, firefighter style. Wisely, however, the rescuers had a team on the ground holding out an outstretched tarp to catch Cora if she fell, which she did. Harmlessly landing on the tarp and then walking away like, what, can't a girl climb a tree these days? Shh, thanks, Obama. Firefighters said they were very pleased all ended well, and that the time we got a Great Dane out of a tree story is going to be one they tell for many moons to come. Let's just hope Cora learns to love herself as a plus-size dog and finds a more down-to-earth hobby.
Former millionaire spends fortune on dog sanctuary. Dogs are man's best friends, but this man is dog's best friend. 29-year-old Wang Yan was a millionaire living in China when his dog went missing. China has a long history with dog slaughterhouses. It is legal to eat dogs in China, and the country has no laws protecting the welfare of pets. China struggles to reshape its view of dogs as pets as opposed to dinner. So, Yan checked slaughterhouses for a week looking for his pet, to no avail. Eventually, the man decided to rescue another dog. Afterwards, he would rescue more dogs. That was in 2012. Now, he has thousands. Often referred to as the Stray Dog Sanctuary, Yan created the center as a place to adopt and care for dogs that were abandoned or destined for the slaughterhouse. Often, dogs would become sick, die, and would have to be burned. Yan would also test medicine on himself before giving it to the canines. Once, he landed in the hospital after an allergic reaction. He estimates that food a day costs him 1,000 yuan to feed all the dogs, a total of about 3 million yuan over the past 3 years. It's a sacrifice that he and his wife have endured, all for the sake of man's best friend.
Bear rescued from BILE farm in Vietnam splashes around in pool. This is Tuffy. He looks like he's having a grand old time, splashing around in this water pit. And he finally is, but his entire life leading up to this happy moment can only be described as excruciating. Tuffy was rescued in September 2015 by an animal welfare group named Animals Asia. He needed a surgery and 6 months of rehab after suffering for years on a bear bile farm in Vietnam. There, he spent his days confined to a tiny cage. His feet had likely never touched ground. Tuffy's fate is shared by an estimated 10,000 bears in China and roughly 1,200 more in Vietnam. Why? For their bile, extracted from their gallbladders daily. Bear bile is sold in many forms, from flakes to pills to powder or as liquid in bottles. You can even find whole bear gallbladders on the market. For more than 3,000 years, many Asian cultures have carried the belief that bear bile can be used to treat a variety of human ailments. Hemorrhoids, sore throats, epilepsy, fevers, and the improvement of eyesight, just to name a few. Bears used in the bile trade are either captured in the wild via steel poaching traps or born into factory farms, enslaved for up to 30 years before their death. Their cages, known as crush cages for obvious reasons, measure 4 feet by 5 feet by 2 feet on average, robbing them of the mobility to stand up or turn around. Bear bile can be extracted in a number of ways, all of them incredibly painful. Most methods involve cutting the bear open and inserting a catheter or similar device through the abdomen, then puncturing the bear's gallbladder. This is usually done without anesthetics or pain medication. Bile then drips out of the gallbladder and is collected in a bag. The catheter is sometimes left in permanently to facilitate an auto-drip function for continued harvesting. A number of substitutes to bear bile have been produced and are sold as alternatives. Yet the worldwide market stemming from bear bile production and bear parts is estimated to be a $2 billion industry. In 2005, Vietnam placed a ban on bear bile farming and production, but loopholes still exist to allow the cruel trade to continue. Rescue groups like Animals Asia are working tirelessly for the remaining 1,200 bears in Vietnam factory farms to be released into sanctuaries like this one, realistically planning for practices to be eliminated by 2020. If they remain on target, the hope is that Tuffy here will have plenty of company bathing and having fun alongside him pretty soon.
Baby elephant rescued after tumbling down storm drain. Some positive animal news today after a baby elephant was rescued at the weekend in Sri Lanka after taking quite the nasty fall. The calf fell down an open storm drain at some point while walking near the town of Hambantota. After falling, the animal reportedly broke one of its legs. Ouch! Elephant herds are common in the area and roam freely, but this poor thing was just plain unlucky. Locals used sledgehammers and even a blowtorch at one point to help get the little guy out. Working with rescuers, they tied ropes around the calf's legs, then heave-hoed it out of the hole. Footage from Sri Lankan television shows the moment rescuers managed to free the animal. Elephant calves usually weigh over 90 kilos. That's 200 pounds. So you can bet these guys really had to put their back into it. Afterward, the animal was taken to hospital and treated for its injuries. Nice to have some good news for a change, yeah? Frenchman and his cat escaped death by jumping from sailboat to safety. Even with this grainy Coast Guard video, it's pretty clear this French sailor is in hot water. Sailing his 30-foot yacht 400 miles south of Cold Bay, Alaska, 28-year-old Emmanuel Watacom-Satanier found himself in the middle of a nasty storm, with 46-mile-per-hour winds stirring up ghastly 20-foot waves. In the middle of the night, a massive wave crashed against the small boat, knocking it over. With he and his cat inside, the boat righted itself, now filled with water. Panicked, he activated a location beacon, and an airplane crew sent out a call for a ship nearby. About to make the leap of his life, the lone sailor stuffed his pet cat into his coat and waited for just the right moment to jump to safety. Somehow managing to hurl himself over the rails of the rescue ship, he and his kitty made it out of danger, surviving to sail again someday. Unfortunately, he says his beloved boat, La Chimère, was claimed by the mean ocean storm, but he can always get another boat, right?